I think at the end of the first day, the thing that really blew me away was that so many of the nuances of the visit were captured, but the chit chat was not captured.
Welcome, everyone, to the Office Practicum PediaTricks Podcast. That's Pediatrics with a K. I'm Sean Rossler, Senior Instructional Designer on OP's Instructional Design Team and the host of the PediaTricks Podcast. And our mission on the show is to make your lives easier. No, we won't be able to help you make sure the little swimmer's sunscreen is reapplied on a regular basis, but we do hope you'll leave this podcast learning something new. Now, we've already heard about AI, and specifically Opie AI, here at OP. And we've heard from our very own clinical personnel here at OP about what they hope to see brought to the table with Opie AI. But there's one more layer, taking it a step deeper, to look at and hear from, and that's the providers and clinicians out there using it. Taking a deeper look once again at Opie AI through the lens of actual users, what benefits, what concerns, what considerations, all of it. This can really shine the light on everything Opie AI has to offer, and really what the user experience has been. And as always, though, I'm not the guy with the answers, but one of our many clinician users has been kind enough to share time with us today to talk about their journey with Opie AI. Joining us on today's podcast is Dr. Nicholas Jernigan, a board-certified pediatrician from Kids Care Pediatrics in North Carolina, to talk about Opie AI through the lens of an experienced doctor. Just what does Opie AI, as well as AI scribes in general, mean to busy clinicians? How does Opie AI help in a busy provider's day? And why should pediatric clinicians leverage this new and innovative tool? Let's find out. Dr. Jernigan, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks so much for having me on today, Sean.
Of course, absolute pleasure. Can't wait to dig in and talk all things Opie AI with you. But first, it is your first time here in the hot seat. So we always start with the basics, the H&P of the interview, if you will. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and just what it is you do.
Sure, absolutely. Like I said, my name is Nick Jernigan. I'm a board-certified pediatrician. My standard practice is in Hampstead, North Carolina. I'm an ECU Medical School, Baylor College of Medicine, internal medicine, and pediatrics double-boarded provider. I've been in practice for about 15 years now. I've worked all over the state of North Carolina, from Wilmington to Cullowhee, North Carolina, and back again. And just got an opportunity to start working with this AI product from OP a couple of months ago, and look forward to talking about it and telling you how the differences it's made in my practice so far.
You couldn't have made the transition any easier for me. You're too good. I'll send the check in the mail, promise. So Opie AI, and really AI scribes in general, right? Naturally, they're on our minds here at OP, but I imagine they're also on the collective minds of busy clinicians everywhere, yourself included. What do you think, Dr. Jernigan, as somebody who's educated on the topic and who uses it, what do you think most people think of when someone says AI scribe, especially in the realm of pediatrics?
You know, I suspect most people, when they first hear the thought AI scribe, think, Alexa doesn't understand me very well. Why would I want something in my exam room that's not going to hear me very well either? And I suspect there's a hesitation is the initial response for a lot of people. I came into this somewhat hesitant, not sure exactly how well an AI scribe could work in the exam room. I'd had friends that had talked to me about AI scribes in the past, and I admit I was somewhat skeptical, though now that I've had several months of use on it, I'm a believer now and ready to tell everybody about the difference it makes for me.
I love that. And, you know, it really is one of those things. Change, as a rule, is scary. Change in general is scary, and new technologies are scary. But I think in most cases, once you do start to leverage them, to use them, they do feel different. So, you know, being a user as you are of Opie AI, you've got firsthand knowledge of all that it can do. And, you know, again, I'm on the inside. I know it's a lot. But to get there, you have to learn to use it, the walk before you run analogy, if you will. Tell us a little bit about what that process was like for you, and kind of as a follow-up, once you started to use it, how long was it until you felt comfortable and could really enjoy what it brings to the visit?
Sure, absolutely. I think the first step is making sure we get the consents right. And so I think my first learning curve was figuring out when is it best, how is it best to introduce the idea of an AI scribe to the patient or the family, and making sure everybody's comfortable with the visit being recorded. So there are multiple different ways people kind of go about this. One is hanging a sign on the front door that says we're leveraging an AI technology that helps in note completion, and the visit will be transcribed and then transcribed again into a medical note. That is one technique, and that seems to work pretty well. I also started just telling people up front, I'm using an AI scribe that is going to listen to our encounter today and take the key pieces out of this. At the same time, that it allows me to introduce what I would say is the major advantage of AI in the exam room, is that I can say, on the other hand, while this is listening and transcribing our visit, I won't have to be typing today. I will be making eye contact with you throughout the visit, and this is going to be a different experience for both of us that you probably haven't had in 20 years.
Yeah, that's a really big one. And having 3 boys myself, one with a disability, it really is something to have that eye contact, to have that, I don't ever doubt that there's empathy if the provider is typing, but the eye contact, that's a win in and of itself. So when you started to use it, Dr. Jernigan, I'm sure, number of benefits you noticed beyond eye contact, let's say. And,
absolutely.
Perhaps it's more, practice-based too. When we think about the benefits that you noticed beyond the immediate, what were some of those? And were there any, like aha moments, like big light bulbs that you realized as to why this is a valuable tool?
Absolutely. I'm going to complete one of the previous questions in the process of answering your most recent question. I think the thing, like the first day, the thing that caught me the most was trying to figure out which visits were going to be the easiest visit types to incorporate the AI scribe into the visit. And I was somewhat hesitant to use it for well checks off the bat. I started out using it primarily for sick visits or follow-up problem visits. And that first day, I did about 6 visits. And over the course of those visits, a strep throat, an ADHD follow-up, a special needs visit, specifically the complete paperwork for a speech-language device. Those first couple of visits, some of which were quick and easy, whereas the speech language is more of a regulatory, how do we get all the pieces and things we need into the note to make sure that I have the note completion to make the Medicaid people happy with my paperwork.
Sure.
And what I was struck by was the accuracy of the notes out of the box. I think at the end of the first day, the thing that really blew me away was that so many of the nuances of the visit were captured, but the chit-chat was not captured. It did an excellent job of allowing me to still be personable and funny and have jokes and be lighthearted in the exam room, as us pediatricians are like to do. But at the same time, it captured the kind of professionalism that you expect in your documentation. In fact, probably more professional than I would be on a daily basis. But that being said, I think the thing I would say for you guys that really does make a difference in how, and this is going to make a difference in my practice, is I was filling out the paperwork, note for this family that came in for a speech and language device. And then, oh, by the way, on the way out the door, the speech therapy is going really well. OT is going great. And we need to get a refill of our continence supplies. And I was able to very quickly just say, so you're still able to use the continence supplies, not having any trouble getting the continence supplies, that they work well, any progress towards toilet training. This was in a 5-year-old. And it quite quickly captured other stuff that would have required me to have another office visit to get all that documentation into the chart. And it did it quickly and succinctly, and it was all there after the visit. And that allowed me to really feel like I could be a little more efficient in my time in the exam room. I didn't need another visit to check all the boxes for Medicaid regulation. I was able to get all of that done in a matter of minutes, maybe even less than a minute.
Yeah. And in playing with it myself, I was amazed, to your point, the editing capabilities that just kind of happen by default. And I even tried to trick it here and there, and it knew what you were there for. So that's great to hear you say that. And you kind of transitioned into the next question, which, ultimately, time is valuable. Time is money, whatever adage anybody wants to use. And it's my understanding clinically, and now it's confirmed with you, Opie AI provides just that back to you busy clinicians, and it's time to focus on other aspects of care. How valuable is that to clinicians? And with Opie AI continuing to learn, does it only get better as it's used more?
Absolutely. I think the first thing I would say is, if there was no value to Opie AI apart from the ability to look a depressed teenager in the eye and tell them everything's going to be okay, right, instead of typing it out, it would be worth it.
I'm clapping. I'm clapping off mic for that. It's just, It
is worth it for just that.
Yeah.
However, it makes my notes more thorough. It helps me keep my regulatory stuff in line. It's doing a really nice job of capturing one more thing on the way out the door that ordinarily us pediatricians may or may not have actually documented in the note. Now that's there, and it's in the HPI, and it's in the assessment and plan. And it's in two places. It's typed out professionally, and I didn't have to stop to think about it. It's just there.
Yeah.
Having been with this pilot project since early on, I've had the opportunity to see the continued learning of Opie AI and how it's done better. One example is, in the first iteration, it was hard if the parent brought up a sibling. It had a hard time telling the difference between what was going on in today's encounter with the patient in the room versus another sibling at home. In the current iteration, it automatically figures that out. It produces a second paragraph that I can cut and paste into a different note if I want to. It is very good at distinguishing between the siblings. So I think there's clear evidence that not only is the AI scribe amazing today, but is clearly getting better with each iteration that comes out.
And that's really, for me as a tech guy, as an instructional designer, that's really the value add, is that it's not just static technology, it's evolving technology, which is just amazing. The self-learning is incredible. Dr. Jernigan, anything else you'd like our listeners to know about Opie AI, what it's done for you, what it can do for them?
Sure. I think one of the things I would really point out about Opie AI, as opposed to other AI Scribe products on the market, the fact that AI Scribe for Opie has been specifically trained for pediatric practice makes a big difference in terms of the quality of the note and how it understands the nuances. I spoke before about how I started with sick visits. I've now been using it more commonly with my well child checks, and I find that it does an exceptional job with those as well. But it's doing it in a way that comes from the perspective of a pediatrician. And I'm really impressed with how well it picks up on anticipatory guidance versus one-off anecdotes in the room. It does a really nice job of laying out the things I talk about with families that I may or may not have taken the time to type out otherwise.
Yeah. It sounds coy, it sounds kitschy to say, but I really do believe it's only going to continue getting better and better and better. And I think that's what I hear you saying.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you that the second aha moment that I had written down that I meant to tell you is the first time a patient comes back and you open your note from your previous visit, and it's the scribe note. And it has all the details. And it has them laid out in a professional manner, and it has them in very clear prose as opposed to our normal little bullet points. You feel so much better prepared as a provider walking in that room than you would have otherwise. It truly, that was the second real light bulb, was my notes are better. They're just better.
And at the end of the day, I think that puts the period at the end of the sentence, the exclamation point at the end. Opie AI is going to make your notes better. You heard it here from Dr. Jernigan himself. Dr. Jernigan, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is a busy schedule to talk with us here on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute honor. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Office Practicum Pediatrics Podcast, or OP3. Be sure to watch for updates and other announcements via both our OP community listserv, as well as our social media outlets. And if you, yes, you, have an idea for a guest, or would like to be a guest yourself, reach out to the show. We'd love to hear from you. Be well, stay safe, and remember, we can always learn new tricks. And on a personal note, this is Sean Rossler, signing off.